Hello everyone and welcome to the Chartered Institute of Linguists webinar, Working with a Translation Agency and Standing Out as a Freelance Linguist, presented by Ilenia Goffredo. My name is Sahila Phillips and I'm the Events and Networks Manager. During this webinar, you can ask questions by posting them on the questions panel to the right of your screen. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have approximately 15 minutes for a Q&A session. There will be one poll, so we'd be grateful for your participation. For now, I'd like to welcome our speaker. Hi, Ilenia. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sohaila. Hi, thank you so much for your kind introduction. Hi, everyone.
You're welcome. So I'm going to pass controls over to you. And once you share your screen, I'll confirm that we can see your slides and let's begin.
Sure. So let me just, can you all see the first slide? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
And can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Nice and clear.
Perfect. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much. Yeah, for having me, Sohaila.
You're welcome.
Yeah, perfect. And morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning and to listen to this webinar. As Sohaila said, today we're going to talk about how to approach new clients, new translation agencies, how to work with a translation agency, and how to stand out as a linguist. Now, for those who don't know me, I'm Ilenia. I'm the co-founder of Linbox. We are a translation agency based in London, and we started back in 2013 with a very small bunch of translators and interpreters. We were all colleagues, and we were just offering 6 languages, and now we actually rely on a much bigger team of linguists. And and we offer different languages. And along with this, I'm also a translator and interpreter with English and Italian. So let me just... So just to give you an overview of what we're going to touch today. So first point, developing a strategy to find and approach new clients. Obviously, today we're going to focus on translation agencies, but you will see that the same strategy, you can actually use this strategy for direct clients as well. So how you plan your approach, how you organize lists and folders, how you are going to adjust your approach to suit each client. And then we're going to touch on creating a strong CV, because obviously that's the main point of, the main part of you approaching your translation agency. And ultimately is going to tell your story, who you are, what you do, so how you're going to design it so that it stands out, and what you're going to include and where, so the structure of the CV, and how you're going to tweak it as well to suit each client. And then we're going to see how to build a strong online presence. Obviously, about online presence, we can talk about this the whole day, but we're just going to touch on a few points. So the importance of having a strong online presence. And we're going to focus on LinkedIn, because it's a very powerful free marketing tool for linguists, and not, obviously. And then being active within your industry. And then last point, making a great first impression. So how to structure your first email, your introduction email to your clients, and how to come up with a good follow-up procedure. So first point, developing a strategy to find and approach clients. So you're going to plan your process. So I think this is a good point, because before you actually approach your clients, you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do, how you're going to approach them. So it can be a good idea, to create a list of potential translation agencies to contact, and actually take that time, to research your potential clients, because not all translation agencies are the same. So you want to make sure that you work for a translation agency that actually value the work, your work as a linguist, and that ultimately you're going to be happy with who you're working. And you can do that, by creating a Word document or an Excel sheet, and you're going to have, the list of potential clients, your potential translation agencies, and you can keep track with this document of who you're going to contact and who you followed up, when, their name, their contact, so that actually you have an overview of what you're doing and where you're at. And then once you have made that contact with your potential client, it's actually a good idea to create a folder for each translation agency so that you keep a copy of, I don't know, any signed agreements and CV that you've sent to that client, because sometimes you might want to tweak your CV to suit that translation agency. If you think of a translation agency that specializes in a particular field, you're going to tweak that CV for that particular client, and then include any services and rates that you've agreed. Now, obviously, second point, creating a strong CV. And this is very important because it's going to be, the main part of approaching your potential clients. And if you think of a CV, it tells who you are, it tells your story and what you do and your previous experience. So I think it's really important to actually take that time to actually design it. You can use, a normal Word document, or, for example, here I've added an image, and it's a template that you can actually find free on Word. So, it shows that you go that extra mile, and you can design a good CV that talks about you. So you can add, I don't know, a touch of color that represents you. But whatever you do, make sure that the structure of your CV is really clear, to the point, so that the recruiter or whoever is going to read your CV knows, everything that you do, and everything is clear. So it showcases you and what you offer, your services, your rates. You can include your rates if you want, you don't have to. Obviously, the language combinations. And in the next slide, we are also going to see how to structure it, so what to put on your CV. And then I've included a third point, use your resources. So what do I mean by that? If you think, for example, you may have a colleague or a friend who is good with InDesign, you may want to ask them, to help you design your CV, because ultimately you want your CV to stand out. So if you think of your colleagues, and I see a lot of CVs that, they are done with Word on a blank page, and then it's just a list of, of experiences that you may have had. But when I see a CV that has been taken care of, that person has taken care of designing it, is actually good, because it stands out and it makes me want to read it even more. Obviously, it depends on you. You can use a Word document, and as long as the structure is clear and well thought, that's great. And because ultimately, it's the content that counts, but having a visually pleasing CV can help you catch the attention of the recruiter. So as I said, what do you want to include in your CV? What can you include? Obviously, it's optional, you don't have to. You can add a professional photo, and this will help you actually give an identity to your profile. So it can make you stand out, it can make that CV memorable to that project manager, to that managing director. Then your contact details, obviously, you're going to add your email address, your phone number. Now, with contact details, make sure that you add as many contact details as possible. You want to make yourself as reachable as possible. So you can add Skype if that translation agency uses Skype, for example. So that's why you can tweak these little things on your CV as well. And then you can add your profile. So a very short overview, a summary of who you are and what you offer. And that will go on the first part of your CV. And I think having this will really give the recruiter a chance to skim through your CV, especially if they don't have the time to read through your CV. This is the very first thing that they will see. who you are, what you offer, your language combinations, and then they can refer to your CV back at a later stage, especially, for example, if they have a very last-minute assignment. So, and in the profile, you can also add, as we said, services, areas of expertise, language combinations, and you can structure them as a list with bullet points, just to make it easier, again, to read. Then you're going, obviously, to include education, qualifications, any CPDs that you may have, your professional experience, skills, associations, software, and CAT tools that you use on a regular basis. Obviously, the professional experience is a big chunk of your CV. So how can you structure it? I think the first point is, don't be scared of showcasing any professional experience that you may have other than as a linguist. So, for example, I don't know, if you have worked for a law firm and now you are a legal interpreter or legal translator, you want to include that because that will give the recruiter a chance to see that you are familiar with the legal jargon, that you are aware of the dynamics within the industry, and obviously it adds credibility to your expertise and your skills. So it's really good to showcase this. And then before we touch on this point, obviously showcasing your professional experience as a linguist, I was just thinking it would actually be good today to see how many of you that you've tuned in today, how many of you are newcomers. So I don't know, you've just recently graduated, or you just started working as a translator and interpreter for about a year, so have limited experience, and how many of you are linguists with experience, with extensive experience, so 2-year plus experience. So Hela, if I can ask you to run the poll.
Of course.
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
So
It'll
I'm
be really
just going
to know.
I'll just launch that now.
Okay.
So everyone should see on their screens. Please, can you choose one of the following statements that matches your experience? So either I am a newcomer to the industry with limited experience, or I am a linguist with extensive experience.
Yes, as I said, yeah, limited experience, anything, if you've just recently graduated or if you only have about 1 year experience, and then extensive experience, if you are a linguist and you've worked for more than 2 years, that's what we mean with extensive experience.
Okay, so I will close the poll now and I will share the results. So we have 59% are linguists with extensive experience, and 41% are newcomers to the industry.
Newcomers. So 41 newcomers and extensive experience 59. This is at 59. So that's actually quite interesting. So I hope, because of the topic, I was hoping to get more newcomers, but it's actually quite good to also have linguists with extensive experience, because you may be here today because you want to reevaluate your strategy in contacting new agencies. So it's really good to know. And going back to showcasing your professional experience as a linguist, that's why I wanted to know how many of you are newcomers and how many of you have extensive experience. Because when it comes to really structuring your CV, you can have 2 different approaches. For example, for newcomers, sometimes, I've had in the past questions where they've asked me, what do I include in my CV if I don't have a lot of experience? So what you could do, you can use your CV, you can have a continuous list and list all of the experiences that you've had, professional experience, linguistic work, and any pro bono, voluntary work that you've had, as a continuous list on the page. With voluntary work, if you even think, for example, you've just studied interpreting at university, and for the whole year, 2 years, you've interpreted for mock conferences. So for a very long number, you've interpreted for many hours. You feel free to include that in your CV. I think it's a good idea to include that, and obviously you can specify that you've done that during your university studies. Whereas with linguists with extensive experience, what you could do is categorizing your experience, and for each service you can actually list, the type of work undertaken, the language combination, the areas of expertise, and your client. Now, what do I mean by that? So I just wanted to give you, some practical examples on how to categorize your experience. And again, this is just a tip I would like to share. For example, if you are a translator, obviously you want to put freelance translator, your language combination. And what you could do, you can categorize your CV into the different areas of expertise. So for example, here I've put business and marketing. So you may have had translated press releases, newsletters, agreements, and so on. Then you can include clients. Now on clients, on this section, you can omit it. So it's completely up to you, but obviously adding your clients can, again, give credibility to your profile. So it's completely up to you, but just be mindful of this. And then I've put another area of expertise. This is just an example, legal, notary certificates, contracts, power of attorney, etc. With interpreting, you can put obviously what you are: freelance simultaneous interpreter, consecutive interpreter, or simply interpreter, your language combination, and then again, all the areas. Here I've put market research, focus groups, in-depth interviews, and again, same process. You can also divide this section into language combinations if you have more than one language combination. So that's also a good idea. And I think by doing this, your CV won't be so repetitive, because sometimes what I see is that, linguists have come up with a list of, clients and what they've done for that client. And sometimes, the same linguist can have done the same thing for two different clients. So it can become repetitive. And by having this strategy, this structure, can really help you not to be repetitive. Also, obviously, if you have a very busy project manager, very busy managing director, you want them to see everything straight away. So for example, if they're skimming through your CV and they're looking for a simultaneous interpreter for market research, they're looking for someone to interpret for a focus group, they will see clearly that you have experience in that sector, and it's quite clear, quite quickly they will see that. Also, I think this structure will also help you to tweak your CV and adjust it to each translation agency. And to do this, you will do this quickly. So for example, for a translation agency that specializes in, legal and finance, or marketing and transcreation, you want to put those areas of expertise at the top so that they stand out. So obviously you are busy as well, and you don't want to lose a lot of time tweaking it. So this way, by categorizing everything, you will be able to move everything quickly for each client. So what we just said, adjusting your CV to target specific clients, arranging your experience into specific sectors. So make sure that the subject areas your client specializes in stands out. So make sure that everything is at the top. Then structure your CV to suit the target country of your clients. So just be aware of any best practices when targeting clients in other countries. If I think, for example, of Italy, recruiters may want to see your education before your work experience, your professional experience. So just be mindful of that. And then, as we said before, just keep a very good structure of your CV, a well-structured CV. Keep it short and sweet, no more than 1 to 2 pages, so that you don't want to lose the focus of the reader with too much text. Project managers, they work in a very fast-paced environment, and sometimes they just want to skim through your CV. So you really want to make sure that they focus on the relevant information that you've provided them with in your CV. Then third point, so building a strong online presence. As I said, you can talk about online presence for the whole day, touching on websites and social media. But today we will be focusing on, the importance of having a strong online presence. And then we will touch on LinkedIn. So this is a very important component of your marketing strategy, whether you are a business owner or a freelance linguist. So it's actually important to have a clear marketing strategy when it comes to your online presence, because ultimately you want your tone of voice and everything that you put on each platform to be uniform. So this will reinforce your profile as a linguist. It portrays why your service is so great and why your clients should contact you. So what sets you apart from the competition, and it gives you credibility and the opportunity to communicate with your clients. It's actually your chance to set the narrative on who you are as a linguist and set yourself apart, as we said, from the competition. So develop a consistent structure and a tone of voice to use throughout all of the channels, including your website and social media. Now, especially if you don't have a website, I think LinkedIn is actually a very good tool, marketing tool to use for linguists, and that sometimes is overlooked by linguists. First of all, it's a free tool and can really help you connect to potential clients and generate new leads. As you know, obviously, it's used by project managers, vendor managers, marketing directors, and other individuals to check linguist profiles, especially when outsourcing or choosing a linguist. If you think of, a project manager just looking for a linguist for a last-minute assignment, they will look for the linguist and then they will check them out also on LinkedIn. This is usually also what we do. We check them obviously on, so for example, if we look for a linguist on the Find a Linguist section on the CIO website, we will check them on there, and then we will also check if they have a website, if they have a profile on LinkedIn. So be mindful of that and make sure that it's always up to date and optimized. So really build your identity by taking care of your primary information. And this may seem very, self-explanatory, but your primary information, what you see at first, what a project manager sees at first, is your primary information. So your profile picture, your name, surname, and headline. If you think, for example, of, you are commenting on a recruiter's post, on a managing director's post, the first thing that managing director will see is your comment, obviously, but also who you are, what you're doing, your name, and your photo. So really take care of those primary information and how you want to be perceived. So decide on your headline, and here you can have two different approaches, I think. It's a good idea, obviously, to include your title or your titles and language combinations as, for example, English, Spanish, Italian conference interpreter. Or you can have a different approach where you have, you can add what you're offering to your clients. So, for example, translation services into Spanish and German. And I think by doing this, by avoiding, for example, language codes, this structure can really help you with SEOs on LinkedIn. So if a recruiter on LinkedIn is looking for a linguist, for an English, Spanish conference interpreter, because you have put that in your title, you should also come up in the search page. Whereas if you put your language code, for example, if you are, I don't know, a Chinese translator, and instead of Chinese translator, you put ZH translator, the SEO may not identify you. You may not come up on the search page when a recruiter is looking for a Chinese translator. And the same, if you are targeting only translation agencies, then okay, you may want to use language codes, especially in your about section, or if you really want in your title. But if you're also targeting direct clients, you may want to avoid that because they may not be familiar with with those codes. And then choose a photo for your profile. Obviously, it has to be a professional and updated professional picture, because it should convey, you know, that you are a reliable and confident professional. And obviously, you can include an action shot, so a reference to what you do. For example, if you are an interpreter, you may want to include yourself interpreting in the booth, or you in action. Then give a structure to your about section. Obviously, it's the first section that recruiters will see once they connect with you on LinkedIn. So again, introduce yourself briefly, who you are, how your clients can benefit from your services, who you are providing your services to, your services and language combinations. Also very important, your unique selling point. So what makes you stand out and what you are promising your clients. So what sets you apart from the competition. And then whatever you do, try to, I think it's a good idea to close your section with a call to action. So use words like get in touch, contact me on, or visit my website, obviously followed by your contact information. So that from the very first start, you know, your recruiter, your potential client is looking through your section, your about section, can clearly see who you are, what you're offering to who. And then, you know, you're just prompting them to get in touch straight away. But whatever you do, again, just make sure that you have your contact details also in the contact section, because if a recruiter, project manager, or potential client is not connected to you and they want to get in touch with you, they need to make sure that they see those primary information, your email address or your phone number, even if you're not connected. And obviously make that section visible to everyone. And then in general, be proactive and engage with your network. You know, try to stay visible to your network and potential clients so that you are always on their minds when an opportunity arises. And, you know, you can post your own article or your own post. You can share posts or comment on other people's posts. So, for example, if you are not you know, if it's not for you posting or writing an article, or you just don't have much time, you can even just be active and comment on posts and sharing posts of other people, you know, potential recruiters, potential clients, and so on. And then I wanted to add this slide, you know, to be even, you know, it's also important when you talk about online presence, you know, to be active within your industry. So I'm sure that all of you today, for example, are members of the CIOL. So that's a great starting point as a newcomer, for example, you know, joining translation and trade associations, even trade associations. So if you are a legal or finance translator, you may want to, you know, also join trade associations for that area. And it's a good idea to take care of and regularly update your profile on their website. So going back to, for example, find the Linguist on the CIO website, because a lot of recruiters actually use that section, you want to make sure that your profile is up to date with the relevant information. You have your contact details, what you offer, and again, you know, make sure that you include any links to your online selling points. So LinkedIn profile, website, etc. And then try to contribute to publications, panel discussions, seminars and webinars. You know, again, everything is online, so this will make sure that you build a very strong online presence. And again, this will add credibility to your profile as a linguist when a recruiter searches for one. And now what? Obviously, you've finalized, you've built your CV, you've taken care of your online presence. The next step is actually, you know, making that first step, that first contact with your potential client. So your introduction email. So make sure that you are making a great first impression with that email, because it's the first thing that they will read about you. So we'll see how to structure it and what to avoid, how you personalize it, again, as for the CV for each translation agency, and how you need to point the translation agency or any potential clients to your selling points, to your online selling points, so social channels, website, and then your follow-up procedure. So how to structure it? So first of all, again, as for the CV, be brief, clear, and to the point. It's the first thing that they're going to read. They don't have much time. You want to grab their attention. So you want to make sure that they read the relevant information, such as services, your areas of expertise, your language combinations. And if you want, even at that point, you can include your rates. But it's completely up to you. Then you have to prompt your potential clients, to get in touch if they need anything else from you. So make sure that you close your email by saying, if you need any clarifications, if you need anything else or need more information, please get in touch. And make sure you really address it to a contact within the team. Now, at this point, it really depends on the translation agency. So for example, if it's a bigger agency, they may have an H&R department or a vendor manager, so you may want to address your email to them. Or if it's a smaller agency, to a project manager or managing director. But whatever you do, it's a good idea to go online on their website, because many of the translation agencies, they will have a dedicated page to their recruitment procedure. So make sure you read everything that you have to include. And then avoid, whatever you do, try to avoid opening your email with dear all, hi all, to whom it may concern, dear sir, madam, dear vendor. And I really hope this is self-explanatory, but you'll be surprised at how many CVs we receive on a daily basis, and they all, some of them, unfortunately, they start with dear sir, madam, and especially to an agency that is small, or you can clearly identify all the recruiteries within that agency. It's very important to actually take your time and find out who the main contact is to contact for the recruitment process. So really spend the time, because ultimately the recruiter will appreciate that. And as we said, personalize every email for each agency so that it's unique to that agency. So identify who the main contact is and who's dealing with the recruitment process. Take into consideration, as we said before, any particular fields that a translation agency specializes in. So if they specialize in legal and finance, or marketing and transcreations, as we said before, you're going to highlight those, especially in the email. And then close your email by pointing them to your online selling point. So close your email by directing the reader to your to your website, to your profile on LinkedIn, and include any links in your signature along with your translation and trade associations logos. Now, going back to addressing your email to someone, if you really can't find a name, you can always use dear and then the name of the translation agency and then team. So for example, dear Linbox team. It may seem a better approach than dear sir, madam. It might be perceived as friendlier. And before you actually press the send button, what we said before, make sure that you check the recruitment procedure, make sure that you include and meet all the requirements that they've specified on their website. So you can even build like a checklist to make sure that everything is there before you send it. And again, I'm really sure that this is going to be self-explanatory for all of you. But even here, you may be surprised about the, some of the CVs that we receive, and unfortunately, or even introduction emails, and unfortunately, there are a lot of mistakes in even the first line of that email. So make sure that you proofread and spell check your email. You can always ask a colleague also to proofread the CV along with your your email, just that before you actually proofread it, you also have a feedback from your client, from your colleagues or from your friends, and then address it to one agency at a time, avoiding any group emails. So now you've sent everything, and is about, following up. So first of all, allow yourself some time, because unfortunately, translation agencies might take a little bit of time to get back to you. But I think it's actually good to wait about 1 to 2 weeks, I would say, and it might seem quite a short time. But if you think about, for example, following them up by phone, then you want that project manager to be able to find your email while you're on the phone. So I would say 1 to 2 weeks. And at that point, just allow yourself some time, and then choose whether you want to follow up via email or by phone. And this, again, may depend on how big the translation agency is. So if you think of a big translation agency, you may want to avoid phoning them, just because it may be a bit harder to find the main contact or the person you have sent that email to. Whereas with smaller agencies, you can, it may be easier to contact them by phone. And now I think we are at the end of the webinar, and I just wanted to add this slide just to say, you've done everything, you've planned, you've finalized your CV, you made a list of who you want to contact, you've taken care of everything. Just allow yourself some time, as we said, try to set your goals, how many clients you want to approach a day. But whatever you do, try to keep going, allow yourself some time. And, the more agencies you contact, the better, because the more chances you're going to have to be contacted. With smaller agencies, you may get a quicker reply. With bigger ones, you need to allow more time. So even having a variety of agencies that you've contacted, this approach may help you, so that while you wait for the bigger ones, you may have the smaller agencies that already have contacted you. And, it's really all about getting the very first assignment, because once you get those very first assignments and you made a very good impression, that project manager will rely on you and will tend to call you for that client, for the client that you worked on. So it's really about having those first assignments. And, just make sure that whatever you do, even if, for example, I'm just thinking, because 50, we said, so Sohaila said 59% of you are linguists with extensive experience. So I'm sure that you have your regular clients. So it may be a good idea, even if you have a very steady workload of regular clients, just to regularly contact new clients, new translation agencies, so that if you have a dry spell with your regular clients, you don't actually have to start from scratch, and you don't have to register with new clients. So you can just send out an email saying that you're available, even to those clients that have never contacted you, but you actually contacted them. So that can be a little tip. And again, in finding your clients, make sure that you're really happy with the translation agency that you are working with. Make sure that you really spend the time to search on translation agencies to your potential clients, and identify those potential clients that value the work of linguists. And I think with everything that we've said, I really hope I gave you a few tips on how to approach potential clients, the best way to approach potential clients. And I hope that I gave you some food for thought and helped you to approach translation agencies with a more positive approach. And with that being said, I think I've talked too much. So, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you, Ilenia.
No
yes, we've had quite a few questions come in,
Good,
so
okay.
let's start going through some of those. So to start with, using a photo on your CV. So this has always been a big no-no in the UK employment market
Okay.
due to recruitment quality of opportunity issues. However, in other countries, it's normal or can be expected. Is the UK market changing now?
I think for our sector, especially for a translation agency and, within the translation industry, you can actually tweak it the way you want, so you have a bit more flexibility. So it's really about what you prefer. As I said, having that photo there can just make your CV more memorable to that recruiter. Because if you think that an agency receives, I don't know, like hundreds of CVs a day, and all of the CVs have the same layout, having one with a photo can actually help you. Obviously, the content is key. That's number one. But if you have one with a photo, a well-structured CV, good content, good work experience, good professional experience, education as well, so that will make you stand out more, so that the recruiter can also put a name, a photo to a name as well. So I think it's completely up to you, and just bear in mind that obviously within the translation industry, you can be quite flexible.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Now, adding clients to your CV. The first part of the question is, do you mean agencies and or end clients? The second part is it allowed or good practice to disclose the agencies one works for?
Again, it's completely up to you. For example, you can choose to include both. And as I said, again, this will add more points to your profile. So it backs up what you are saying in your CV. So it's actually good. You can include both, or you can just include direct clients if you are worried that you don't want to disclose any translation agencies, or it can be the other way around. You are scared of your direct clients. It's absolutely fine to just put your translation agencies. Ultimately, you have to put in your CV what you're comfortable, disclosing.
Sure. Okay. And if you've signed a NDA with an agency, would you just list your clients by using a generic description, such as a global pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, you can do that,
Yeah.
especially if it's if you talk about sensitive clients, sensitive information. Yes, you have to be very mindful of that, especially if you have signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Do you envisage translation and interpreting using remote methods to continue to be important over the next few years?
Yes, of course.
And how important are remote skills versus face-to-face meetings in light of the ongoing pandemic?
Yes, I think obviously everything has switched to online platforms. So this is key, especially if you're an interpreter. So nowadays, most of your work will be done. It will be you interpreting on platforms, on online platforms. So it's very important to show your translation agencies as well that you can use the different platforms, that you are familiar with the new way of using your console. Is not in front of you, but it's on the screen. So yes, that's key. That's very important, because we are moving towards using more online platforms especially for interpreting, I would say. But obviously keep in mind that you will still need interpreters. Face-to-face interpreting will still be there. If you think of medical appointments, especially medical appointments that can be done via an online platform, or important meetings that can be done online. So I think we're going towards the use of online platforms, but I think in person will still be there as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, regarding rates in the introduction email, Someone has commented that it often results in being rejected by agencies without any discussion.
Yeah.
What is your view of this as an agency owner?
That's why, so first of all, so thank you so much for all of your questions. I think they're really good. And so regarding your rates, and this is sometimes this can be a common sticking point, rate. So I think, so that's why in the introduction email, for example, if you don't want to disclose your rates, it's actually quite good, because you want to make sure that you actually make that first contact with the agency, because you can always negotiate your rate. But ultimately, I think you want to make sure that you set your rate, that you're comfortable with the rate that you are offering. Make sure that you're always flexible, but you have to be happy with the rate that you are offering, or that you have negotiated. So really be open and flexible with whoever with the translation agency that you are dealing with, but choose a rate that you're comfortable with.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any advice about what to include in the follow-up email?
In the follow-up. Okay, so you can ask for, the first one can be a very generic one, and you can just ask, I just want to make sure that you received my email safely, and see how long it will take for you to get back to me. If you see that you still haven't got a reply to that email, you can do another one, same style. If you actually see it that a translation agency doesn't get in touch to you, then I would say tweak a little bit the email, just to ask, some feedback on why they're not getting back to you. But I think just keep it a little bit generic, and make sure that in the email you ask if they've received it safely and how long it will take for them to get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Someone else has asked whether not being online, so having these online accounts, would this count against you? They don't want to
I think
promote
so.
themselves online?
With accounts, do you mean LinkedIn, website?
I think so, yes. So an
Okay.
online presence.
I mean, if you think of a recruiter, okay, a project manager that has to choose a linguist for a last minute assignment, you want to make sure that as a recruiter, you try to have as much information as possible from that linguist. So as I said in the presentation, it adds credibility to your profile. So if I know that that particular linguist has a website, again, it doesn't have to be a website. A LinkedIn profile works absolutely fine. But if I know that, I can clearly see their profile and they're active on CIOL, they are on the Find the Linguist, they have their profile on LinkedIn, that's absolutely fine. Plus, they have really good CV. It just adds points, adds credibility to your profile. So I think it's really good, especially if you think that they are free and they're available to you for free. And again, there are tools that can really help you to create those new leads, so to approach new clients. And as I said before, even if you have a very steady workload, you still want to find new clients. You want to develop your portfolio, your clientele. So I think it's good. And if you don't want to invest in a website, it's absolutely fine. You can have LinkedIn or your profile on CIOL. It's absolutely fine.
Okay then, thank you. Someone else has just commented that you didn't mention prose.
Prose, okay.
Yeah, so do you use prose? Any comments
We
on
tend
that?
not to use prose unless is one of those languages that you struggle to find. There are languages that you really struggle, where you can't find the linguist and you have to use prose. This is obviously my personal opinion, and I know that is used by Linguist. I actually have a profile on it as well, but I think that there are other very good tools before that. So as I said, and I know I refer back to Find the Linguist, you know, or other profiles on other translation associations. I think this gives you this gives you credibility, and because you know that it's a translation association, you feel at ease at choosing that client. I think that's why. But obviously, it's absolutely fine if you want to have a profile on PROS as well. It's completely fine. But as I said, we tend to use PROS for languages like, I don't know, Indonesian or, you know, other languages.
Sure. Okay, then, thank you. Would you recommend setting aside X number of hours per day or per week for researching agencies and applying to them?
Yeah, yes. Especially if you already have a lot of work and you don't have much time, you know, just try to set some, you know, a target. For example, per week, I want to send 40 emails. So I want to approach 40 new translation agencies. Also because you will see that the email, the CV you're going to send is the same mainly, but as we said, you want to tweak everything to make it unique to that translation agency. So yes, I think setting the target, a good target per week is a good starting point.
Okay, thank you. Someone else has asked about CAT tools. Which would you recommend in general? Are there specific ones that you find better for certain languages?
I mean, with CAT tools, we mainly use MemoQ, Trados, but you also have XTM. Even, you know, there are other ones, but it's completely up to you, and you want to make sure that you're happy with what you're working with as well. You know, the layout. You may find that you prefer Trados rather than MemoQ. So first of all, make that choice for yourself, and then if you can, you know, you may have translation agencies that use MemoQ or XTML, but they can actually provide you with the license online, their online license online for translators. So you don't have to buy that tool. So as long as you show flexibility and that, you know how to use them, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to use all of them, but, you know, it really depends on the translation agency. So see what they use and then make that decision based on that.
Okay, thank you. The length of a CV, sorry, how long should that be? 1 or 2 pages?
Yeah, well, I would say 1 or 2 pages. And as I said, this is why I think that categorizing your CV, your professional experience into categories, into areas of expertise, language combination, and you know, having a really good structure can help you to summarize everything in an effective way, so that you keep it under 2 pages.
Okay. Someone else has commented that many agencies require at least 2 years experience.
Yes.
So do you have any advice for those who are making a late career change and they've got a lot of professional work experience elsewhere?
So yes, minimum, 2 years of experience. But what you could do, this is why sometimes doing some pro bono work for NGOs, for example, can really help you. So you can just add that to your CV. Even if you are a newcomer, you know, and as I said, you've just graduated, you know, you can still put as your experience that you've interpreted during, you know, mock conferences or during your studies at university. I think that can count towards your experience as well, because you've actually done the work, you have actually interpreted.
Right. Okay. And let me just see the time. I think we've just got time for one more question. How do you get to do the volunteer work?
as I said, you know, try to, so if you've just finished your studies, ask your university or look for NGOs. So I think going back to your university can be a really good starting point, or try to look online with pro bono work. Sometimes even translation associations, they will advertise pro bono work, so that can also be a good starting point that you can include in your CV. And just one thing, going back to you know, if you have limited experience or you've just started as a linguist, I think obviously the benchmark is 2 years of experience, but for example, for us, you know, we always tend to look at the profile of a linguist, and especially if they have really good qualifications, a really good professional experience, even if it's limited, you know, your project manager may look at your profile and think, okay, right, this project can be suitable for that candidate. So I think that's why, you know, just try to, don't give up just because you don't have much experience. Still contact your translation agency, especially if on their website they don't have, I don't know, you can only apply if you have 5 years of experience.
Sure. Okay then, Ilenia. Well, thank you so much for your time. That
No
was
worries.
very clear and insightful, and I'm sure our listeners have found your advice to be very helpful. I'd also like to thank the listeners for all of their questions. So before I close the webinar, I'd just like to remind you all that your certificate and a link to the recording will be emailed within 3 working days. And CIOL members, don't forget to log this webinar as your CPD activity on My CPD. Lastly, we have an interesting programme of webinars and workshops already lined up for the year, so please do take a look at the website for further details. So thank you, Ilenia, and
No
thanks all
worries.
for listening.
And Sohaila, if I can, so thank you so much
Yes,
for having me, and thank you everyone for tuning in this morning and listening to me. If you have any further questions, you know, I've put here my contact details, so feel free to get in touch.
that's perfect. Okay, then I will
Thank you.
close the webinar.
Thank you so
Thanks
much,
then.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.